Is this? Hey y'all, and welcome to this new thing that I'm trying. Um, I'm gonna start doing what I'm gonna call Lunchtime Live, and so I plan to on Thursdays to go live here in the Facebook community, just to give y'all the opportunity to learn more about me, so I can have the opportunity to learn more about you all, and also to be able to answer questions that you have, or we can have conversation about just all things parenting. A lot of times we talk about parenting, we talk about things that are going on in terms of behaviors, in terms of meltdowns, and I just want to be able to maximize your time and maximize the audience. So, who am I? I am Megan Ham. I am the founder of the group, Master of Meltdown Moments with Megan. I'm a licensed professional counselor, racial play therapist, and I'm also a child parent relationship expert. And so, what I do on a daily basis is I work with parents on being able to help their children in their relationships, to help their children with behaviors by focusing on the relationship. That's in a nutshell kind of what I do. But I also do all things trauma. I talk about, I work with kids who have been impacted by trauma. I work with parents who have been impacted by trauma. And that really is the start of our conversation today. So today I just wanted to come in for a few minutes to talk about healing from childhood. And this is fresh on my mind because I just did a speech presentation last Friday on healing from childhood. And in this presentation, I talk about, how to identify childhood trauma in adults. How do we heal from it? What are some things that we can put in place to heal from it? But also how it shows up and it impacts how the adults show up as parents. And so for me, that was the biggest aha because I typically, if you ask anybody, or if you ask people, people typically will associate me with working with children, which I work with children. I'm a racial play therapist. I'm trauma trained. I am attachment trained. And a lot of the people that come into my clinic and the ones that I help and who I see the most progress with are children who have some big behaviors. I mean, these are the kids who are having the meltdowns, the kids who are, maybe struggling with their emotions, struggling with coping skills, struggling with different things like that. And as I've been working with these children who have all different types of experiences, whether they be traumatic with being in foster care or traumatic in being adopted, or whether they are just living with different family transitions, a lot of family systems, things that are going on. And, all the things could cause kids to have behaviors. I firmly believe that behaviors are a kid's way of communicating. And so one of the things I work on with parents is being able to how do we find out what the behavior is communicating? What is that behavior trying to tell us? What is the kid trying to tell us through the behavior? So I say all that to say that's the work that I do. But in doing that work, I really have come across a lot of sometimes when working with parents where the parents are really struggling with being able to connect with the kid. They're struggling with being able to get out of their way of being able to support their child when they're having these big moments because of things that are coming up for them. And so that got me to thinking, in order to help the children and support the kids, I definitely had to be able to help and support the parents. And so started working with parents during our family sessions, not just always focusing on what's going on with the child, but also focusing on what's going on with the parent and how can I support them. And so what I found in doing that was that there are a lot of parents who have been dealing as well with trauma. Some of it was historical trauma and childhood trauma, and some of it is in the moment present trauma. And so as I'm working with these parents and realizing that they're dealing with trauma too, and so it made me to really challenge the way that I approach, the way that I do therapy. I encourage myself to lean more into being able to support the parents on a different level. And there, and for there came, I don't even know if that's a word, and for there. And through all of that, we're going to say that. And through all of that, we came with the healing from childhood. Because one of the things that I recognized was that in order for the parent to be able to fully be present to parent the child of today, they had to be able to go back and heal the child of yesterday. And so that's where we talk about, one of the things that we talk about in that presentation are the ACEs study. And so the ACEs study really talks about how our adverse childhood experiences impact us. When we have those experiences as a child, they definitely impact us as an adult. And so part of that is the ACEs are things that we cannot control, right? Those are the traumatic experiences that happen to us, whether it be the loss of a parent, whether it be living in poverty, which could be traumatic. Not everybody living in poverty is dealing with trauma, but it could be traumatic. Also, having physical, sexual, emotional abuse as a child, it impacts how we show up to parent. And so, one of the things that I fully work in is being able to understanding the concept of what we call protective factors. So the trauma that we experience is what we call a risk factor. Those are the things that, if you think about it like science, those are the things that are negatively charged, right? A negative plus a positive equals what? A positive, right? That's what Google told me. But those are the things that we learned when we were younger in science. So the negative thing that happened would be, or the negative charge thing could be the trauma. Those are things that sometimes we cannot control, right? Those are things that happen to us. Those are things we go and we sign up for. But one of the things that I learned in doing the research and just working with families is that for every negative experience that we have to be able to add something to it that's positive. And that's where the protective factors come in. And so our protective factors become individual learning resiliency skills, emotional regulation. They become societal, in terms of being in a safe environment. They become, having policies and procedures at schools to be able to have children where they're trauma informed. So the children have a safe space and they're protected. And so those are some of the things that we talk about is how do we, the parts that we can't control, the risk, the trauma, but how do we come back and we learn to add value? We learn to add positives, like in terms of the protective factors, so that we can help ourselves heal. And so that's one of the things that I wanted you to think about today is we can't always we can't always protect somebody or decrease the trauma that happens in somebody's life. If we could take the pain away, I know most of us in this community would definitely take the pain away, and we can't. And most of us, if we're foster parents or we're working with children who've been in foster care, who've been victims of trauma, is we can't take their pain away. But what we can do is we can be those protective factors. We can help them find the protective factors. We can add the protective factors. One of the things in my research that showed me is that one of the protective factors is just that having that strong parent-child relationship in turn becomes a protective factor. Now, does that mean it's going to be easy? No. I'm not even going to lie to you. And if I told you it's going to be easy, I would definitely be telling the story. Right? But is it doable? Yes. And is it worth it? Absolutely. Like there's so many days that I am able to just sit with people, and one of the things for me that helps me to do the work that I do is when I'm sitting with a parent and the light bulb goes off and they're like, you know what, Miss Megan, all I did was, and they'll say something, they'll minimize the work they put in and say, well, all I did was stop yelling, or all I did was try to be more investigative, or like try to look more into the behavior. All I did was, and I stop them in their tracks and say, no, it's not all you did, because that's you putting the work in. That's you doing the thing. And sometimes it's easier than others, but it's definitely going to always be worth it, because if we start to look at our children and look at them and identify that they are trying, and that the behavior is just coming out in different ways, then I think we can definitely help them more. And we can definitely do more for them. And so that's where, when I talk about compassion, and compassion is an action word, and being able to do the thing, because we are there to be a support, but we also need to be supported. And so, thinking about healing from childhood, I want you to think about, sometimes life gives us those negatives or those traumatic experiences, and we're the ones who have to be able to identify that and add some positive to it. So that's my word of the day. That's my lunchtime live. And so if you have any questions or anything, please just drop them in the Facebook group, or you can drop them under this. And let's start a conversation about healing from childhood and learning how childhood trauma impacts us in our role as adults. It impacts our parenting. All right, see y'all in the Facebook group.